Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Menachos 11m. We begin on the very last line of Yudamid Beis. So he did a kmitza, but the problem is he found something that doesn't belong in there. Kamatz, he did the kmitza v'lo biyadeh, discovers that in his hand, in his scoop, there's a tzrar, a little pebble, which is pretty much displacing the dough that's meant to be in that spot. So it's a missing kaimetz, or gargar melech, or a granule of salt. Same idea. Or a granule of the incense which accompanies the mincha. All these don't belong inside the kaimetz. Kaimetz is possible. Why do we need to provide all these examples, which are pretty much rooted in the same underlying point? It's a missing kaimetz. Why the repetition? Kol hani lamli. Why discuss all these cases? Each one has a lesson. The Tanat Tzror, we only discussed the case of the pebble, because a pebble is never suitable for hakrava. So, of course, it interferes. But if it's a piece of salt which is connected to carbon, in fact, every carbon, including a mincha, is sprinkled with salt, so technically the material is suitable material in general. It doesn't belong in the kaimetz, but it's hakrava material. The bas hakrava, he aimed his kasher, so perhaps you can count it in. On the other end, Vitana Melech, the Mishnah only discusses the salt and not the lavaina. I would say, you know why the salt is a problem? Because it's a foreign entity relative to the dough. Because it was never bound together with the mincha. It wasn't placed in the same kli for it to be considered one and the same entity. The salt comes after the kmitza is done, so it's really out of place. So that's why it's considered a missing kaimetz. But lavaina material, which actually was already established together with the mincha in the kli mi'ikar. Initially, they put the dough and then they add the lavaina. Perhaps they're bound together. It's like one entity. Even if you find some lavaina in the kaimetz, maybe you can let it pass. It's all in the family. Kamash Malana says the Mishnah, no. any sort of missing kaimetz, be it because you found a pebble which is totally foreign to a mincha, salt which is quasi-foreign, or lavaina which is sort of part of the package right now, still it disqualifies the mincha. And the reason is because it was told, it was learned that a kaimetz which it's missing, or it's too bloated, too big, too much material, is pasul. A missing kaimetz or yasser, or there's too much there. Either way, the kaimetz is possible. Ask the Gemara. That's one issue. The kaimetz is missing because of the foreign item, found inside. But aside from that issue, there's a more straightforward issue, which is chatzitza. Because that granule, that pebble, is getting in the way between the kohen's skin and the rest of the dough. Why discuss missing or too big? There is a more simple issue, which is chatzitza. Amar Rabbi min atzad was speaking that the pebble is off to the side, so the scoop itself is unhindered. There's a pebble off to the all the way at the edge, facing the outside of the kmitza. So it's not getting in between his skin and the material. Okay, so in that case, there's no chatzitza issues. Rather, it's because it's chaser. Okay, now we talk so much about the act of kmitza. How do you go about doing it? Do you scoop it like this, sideways, upside? How do you do it? The pasuk just says v'kamatz. You do this scoop out. How do you do that? Amalei Abaye, he asked the question literal. How do you go about doing kmitza? Amalei kedekam inshi. the way people do it. And the Gemara understands it to mean, Rashi says, Mashma b'chola etzba'is, using all your fingers, a fistful like this. Eisvei comes a kasha, says Abaye, I have a brisa which says, no, it's only done with 3 fingers. Zu zeres, and the brisa itemizes one's fingers, right, one by one, each one with its own unique name corresponding to its function in the Torah. So the pinky, the small finger, is called zu zeres, called the zeres, because that's where the zeres measurement begins from. It's a tefach that you measure from the last finger to the first finger. Zu kmitza. The next finger, one off from the pinky, is called a kmitza, and the reason is because that's where you begin the kmitza. Right? So the kmitza only involves 3 fingers, not the last one as well. Zu amma, the middle finger, is called amma, because it's the one that sticks out the farthest, and that's where you measure the measurement amma, from the edge of that finger all the way to the elbow. That's called the amma measurement. Next finger is zu etzba, that's the etzba, the kohen dips into the blood, and zu geidel, and the thumb is called the geidel, which Rashi says is pertinent for the mitzvah. That's where they put the blood, the oil, on the geidel of the mitzvah. So clearly we see that the act of kmitza does not involve the all 5 fingers. Actually, it begins from the second to the last, so it's only a partial scoop. You're right, ela lahashvos. You're right, it's only a 3-finger scoop. The point of involving the other fingers, Rava meant lahashvos, to even out the material. So you do the scoop with the 3, but then there's some protrusions, there's something sticking out, it's uneven. You use the pinky to wipe off the excess on bottom and the thumb on top. So again, how do you do this? Do you go with your fingers facing up, facing down, sideways? He says, you take the 3 middle fingers and you do the kmitza by scooping it over the palm. Okay, so you come in like this, sideways, and you scoop out with just 3 fingers over the palm. You find the same in the brisa, that the kmitza is done in this manner. Pasuk says, right, v'kamatz misham meloi kumtzai, the kaimetz full kaimetz, full scoop. Yachal mevuretz, perhaps it means, just protruding from all sides, like a super jumbo-sized scoop out. Talmud comes the pasuk back and says, "Bekumtzai," it has to be inserted in the kaimetz, limited to that area only. So it's a limited type of scoop. No, if only from the pasuk bekumtzai yachal parashes boys, perhaps it means a little pinch, a little, just a little using the tips of the fingers, a little teeny pinch of flour or whatever. The kaimetz full, so it's a full scoop. Okay, so how do you work this out? Is it mini or jumbo? The answer is somewhere in the middle. As we explained before, use your 3 fingers, but fully folding them over the palm, and you do a kmitza in that manner. So you have a substantial kmitza, but it's limited to that, to that 3 finger area. Now, in some instances, the mincha material wasn't just pliable dough; it was already fried or baked. How do you ensure that it stays within this little, 3-finger zone? So, like we explained, you use the thumb on top to wipe away the excess to even it out. And then likewise, using the pinky on bottom. In fact, this is the most difficult most challenging task in the Mikdash, to get it right. Ask the Gemara, this is the only difficult task. There's no other challenging avodah. What about the act of malika, which requires the kohen to use just his right hand, clutching the bird and doing the malika with his nail? A very complicated task. What about the double scoop that the kohen gadol does Yom Kippur with the teretz, which is also a complicated operation? You're right. Ella zohi achas ma'avodah is kosher shemigdash. The act of kmitza is just one of several challenging, difficult, tricky tasks in the Mikdash. Amar Papa. It's clear to me in terms of direction of scooping, it's the way people do it. Malay kumtza means the way people typically do it, the way Rashi learns it. We have the bowl of material and we slide our hand in sideways. Right? So you come in from the side of the finger, side of the hand, not the front, not the top, just like on diagonal. You come in like this, sideways, and you get the scoop in there and you scoop it out. So that certainly works. By Rapapa. So Rapapa wasn't sure about other forms of kmitza if they work. What about kamatz b'rashetz ba'isaf? So he put his palm facing down on the material and scooped with his fingers pulling back. Does that work? Not studding. What if he placed the back of his hand on the material and sort of shook back and forth until the material ended up inside the fingers, and he did the scoop that way? What if he ran his hand in totally backwards, upside down, so the back of his hand was facing downward, and he came in on diagonal like a shovel, upside down, and did the kmitza? What's the halacha there? Take it, we leave it unresolved, because this is not your standard kmitza, move. Amar Papa Pshitali continues Rav Papa regarding a similar discussion about the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, who's meant to do the two-handed scoop of the Keteres. So the Torah doesn't, describe it in play by play. What we assume Malay Chafra means, because Chafra Ish, people typically do so. They take both hands and they come in sort of a diagonal and they meet the hands together with the material stuck in between, right? That's typical. By Rav Papa, now comes the question: what about chafam b'rashetz ba'isaf? So he went fingers in first and scooped it out like that, and that's how he did his scoop. What's the halacha there? We're not studying. What if he put the back of his hand down on the keteres and sort of wiggled back and forth until he accumulated the keteres within his hands? What's the halacha there? Chafan b'yad, chafan b'zu. Let's say he did the double scoop by first scooping one handful and then the other handful, right? Chafan b'zu. He did two separate handfuls, and then he joined them together as one doubled handful. What's the halacha in this case? In all these cases, take it, we leave it unresolved, because this isn't really the typical way of doing it. Okay, now let's go back to the kaimitz of a mincha, which we know is meant to be placed inside a kli. Right? So after kmitza, you take the kmitza, you put it into the kli for kiddush kli. So certainly it's meant to be in a kli sharas. By Rav Papa. Furthermore, ask Rav Papa, dafke l'kaimitz, but dafne de manamai. What if the kaimitz was glued, was stuck to the wall, the interior wall of the kli sharas? Shall we say it works or not? Is a requirement that it should be inside? It is inside. Perhaps you need to place it down on the bottom the way it's meant to be. In this case, it's still on the wall. Take it, you don't have that. Take it, we leave it unresolved. But my Rav Ashi comes another question. What about hafchi lemana? He took the klisharis, turned it upside down, and on the back there was some sort of inverted space, some sort of containment area, but it's on the back of the kli. And he put the kamitz in there. What's the halacha there? Shall we say hanocha b'soichai be'inon va'ika? The main point is to have the kamitz inside. It's inside. It's in a it's in a indentation, right? So it's contained in a container. You can say tikna be'inon v'leka. No, it needs to be properly placed inside the way a properly functioning kli is meant to serve. Right side up, take it, we leave it unresolved. Okay, so we discussed the kaimitz, which is missing some material, is puzzle. Too big is also puzzle. How do you go about doing the kmitza? Ideally, coming in, swooping in on diagonal, and then pulling out with those three fingers, using the top and bottom to smooth it out. In the other direction, we're not sure about. Continues the Mishnah. Okay, Kate to the Oasis. How does he go about with the kmitza? Poisha, that's his right? Like we said, you use the you fold the three fingers over the palm, and he goes about doing the kmitza. Now, riba shamna, chaser shamna. The mincha is meant to have a prescribed amount of oil. Hey, look, let's say he added too much oil. Or he diminished the amount, less than required. Or he did less levina than required psula. In all these cases, the mincha is pas. Says the Gemara. What's the example of too much oil? A mincha is meant to have one lug. He set aside 2 lugin, and he mixed it into the mincha. Now, just why does he have to talk about a case where he designated 2 lugin? Just speak simply that he added another, an ounce into the mix. But like me, could have easily learned a Mishnah shemen, the chulin, shemen the chaverti, mixed in some random oil, chulin oil or oil that belonged to a different mincha. Why specifically a case of hifresh lashnei lugin? Well, says the Murchitema, perhaps we can argue shemen the chulin, shemen the chaverti loy pasal. Then a factor Belezer will hold that if he mixes in random oil, it doesn't disqualify the mincha. Only oil which was, earmarked for the mincha, and it's too much, that's a problem. But takes random oil, that's not a problem. Really? Maska Florav Zutra Batu, I have a question. If that's the case, so we know that when one mixes oil into a mincha which is not meant to have oil, like a mincha schoite, which is meant to be bone dry, mincha is pasal, right? What do you mean? He mixed in mincha which is oil which is unrelated, which is random oil, which according to what we just said doesn't disqualify a mincha. If that's the requirement for psul, it has to be designated for this mincha, just too much. So mincha schoite, regarding a mincha of a sinner, where oil doesn't belong in there to begin with. The apostle b'shemen, which we know for a fact that if you mix in oil, it makes it apostle. How's that to ever happen? Idida, if the oil was meant for this mincha, well, it wasn't. Halesla, the mincha doesn't have oil. Idechun, the chaverta, is it random oil? Harmless apostle just told me it doesn't disqualify. Answers the Gemara, you're right. For Rabbi Elazar didn't mean to say the only time extra oil disqualifies if it was meant for this mincha. Rabbi Elazar, he was going like this. It goes without saying. It's simple. It's obvious. Of course. The chun, the chaverta, if it's random oil. The pasal, if it's mixed in, it's pasal. But in our case, there's an added point to be made. Suppose he did designate 2 lug. You would think perhaps it helps the matter. It's better. Look at each bottle. Each bottle on its own is okay. You're okay. Both together is too much, but each one on its own, independent of the other, is subro material. So perhaps it's not as terrible when you go and mix them both in. So perhaps it should not disqualify the mincha when both are mixed in. Kamash one comes to Belezer and says no. Even in this case, where the oil was designated for the mincha, too much is no good. No, how does Belezer know this to be true? Amarava, take a look at the Mishnah. Take a close look at the semantics of our Mishnah, which will teach you this point. Masis and Kashisi, he had difficulty with the lashon of the Mishnah. Why does the Mishnah stress that he added its oil, shamno, mapekei, shemen shalah? Why discuss its oil? Listen to Ribba shemen, instead of simply saying he added oil. Hello, Kamash, on the point that the Mishnah is to stress the avagav divish lashne. Look at even in the case where he earmarked the double dose of oil for this mincha. Once he mixes it in, it's possible. Chisa levina, so too little levina is possible as well. To Rabbanon, how little is too little? You meant to have a kaimetz amount, right? That's the shir levina. Let's say a kaimetz would be an ounce. That's how much levina you put on the mincha. Chasra, it's missing some levina. V'imdal karet echad, you're left with just 1 granule. That's too little psula. Al shnei karting sher, if there are 2 granules, you can get away with that. That's Rabbi Shita. Okay, so 2 at a minimum. Shimon Aimer, even 1 is okay. Al karet echad ksher pachas become psula. 1 granule is okay, less than that is possible. Ask the more about Tanya. So is that true that according to Reb Shimon, 1 granule works? Reb Shimon Aimer kametz levina, whether it's the kametz or levina, shechaser kol shu apostle. Even a drop missing from the levina is possible. Here we say up to a granule. Today, let's revise the Bryce. A granule of levina which went missing even below that point, it's possible, but 1 granule is okay. Another way to answer this question is like this. It depends how the levina is being brought. Together with a mincha, then we say 1 granule is enough. Because as we're going to see in the pasuk later, in this sort of package form, 1 is enough. But if it's levina donated on its own, you could donate the levina on its own, then you need a full amount. Any less doesn't cut it. What you say, but depends. Reb Shimon allows one granule when it's levina that's accompanying a mincha as part of the package. Kan b'levina boim isfnei atzma. The other brayso where he says too little is no good. That's when the levina was donated on its own. So over there's no leeway. In fact, we have three different opinions regarding levina missing. Right? I mean, this missing levina that was meant to be with the mincha, and its missing part. So we have three shittas. In the Mishnah we have Reb Meir, who says any missing levina is possible. Reb Meir savar kaimetz betchila v'kaimetz b'sayf. You start with the kaimetz levina, you end with the kaimetz levina, no leeway. Rabbi Yehuda savar, Rabbi Yehuda in the Brisa says kaimetz betchila. Yeah, you got to start with the right amount. Ushnei kratim b'sayf, but ultimately, if you're missing even 2 granules, does the job. Works. Reb Shimon savar kaimetz betchila. You got to start with the kaimetz. V'kar dechad b'sayf. Ultimately, if you just left with 1 granule, it's enough, and it's all based on the same pasuk. They're all 3 based on the same pasuk, which says v'es kol levina shala mincha. So the pasuk refers to all the levina on the mincha. Ramei savar kol means literally the entire batch, entire dose, nothing missing. Adik Ramei savar the ikal levina by the mincha meikara. Right? It's not going to work unless you have the full amount of levina that was bound to the mincha from the first moment, which means the full kaimetz. Adi isa levina the ikba ba'ad mincha meikara. Rabbi Yehuda savar. He says, look, the word kol means any amount. Kol, any little amount. Right? 2 ways to learn the word kol. Kol can mean the full amount, nothing missing. Kol can mean no, even a little bit. Any amount works. Kol means afilu karet, echad karet, even 1 karet would be enough at this point. And the word es in the pasuk is also a minimizer, only even just a little bit. Sorry, S means to add. S means to add. So we went down to just 1 granule. Comes S and says, no, up it to 2. S, Rabbis Karet Acher, you need another one, so Kontra Bida, 2 at a minimum. Shimon, Ashley Darsh. Shimon says, Kol means any amount, even 1 granule. He doesn't focus on the word S. So you're left with just 1. Okay, so 3 shittas regarding the minimum amount of levina that works. So you have to start with the kaimetz according to all shittas. Reb Meir says you got to stay with the kaimetz. Anything less doesn't work. Rabbi Yehuda says 2 granules. Reb Shimon says 1. You meant to know this whole discussion. Full kaimetz, 2 granules. What? That's levina that comes with the mincha. Because that's the pasuk that we just discussed. But if a fellow donates levina on its own as a separate offering, all agree it needs to be kaimetz at a minimum. There's no wiggle room here. All agree you start with the kaimetz, you end with the kaimetz. Look at the pasuk. It says, that compromise, so to speak, is good with kaimetz that comes with a mincha. The bahada mincha in. Yeah, only a levina that comes with a mincha, then we have leeway, but levina that comes on its own is not referred to in that pasuk. So there we need a full amount. Furthermore, our discussion regarding the minimum requirement of levina is only levina bar mincha, that levina comes with a mincha, so the levina that's contained in the spoons that accompany lechem hapanim, there's no leeway there. It's got to be the right amount. You start with 2 scoops and the 2, spoons, and that's how it has to proceed. Ultimately, you need the same amount. You can't. No negotiations. Says the Pshita. Well, of course, there's no pasuk to allow less. Why would I think? No, perhaps I can think has the same status as levina with a mincha, because ultimately it's part of the lechem hapanim package. So perhaps it has the same, same rules. Since it's accompanying the breads, kasher ala mincha damya, it can be covered by that pasuk that we spoke about before. Levina that comes with a mincha has leeway. No, the point is no. Kamashmon is a different setup, and the levina has to be full and complete. Concludes the Gemara. It's not so simple. Pligi bo Rabbi Ami Rabbi Nitzak Nafcha. There was machlokes between these 2 chachamim. Chad number 1 explained, as we said before, machlokes. Our 3 shittas regarding the minimum amount of levina that can work. Levina b'ofnei mincha. That's levina that comes with a mincha because of that pasuk that allows for a leeway. Levina b'ofnei atzma, but levina that is offered on its own. All agree. It's got to be fully intact. But the opponent says no. So just as we have a disagreement regarding Levina that accompanies a mincha, some say less than kaimet's worse. The same would apply with Levina that's offered on its own. Levina is Levina. Just like there we say less than the kaimet's works. Likewise, even in the case of Levina that comes on its own. Okay, the Mishnah says if it's missing Levina, it's possible. Let's make a diuk. The Mishnah would imply that if it's more Levina than required, it would be okay. By Tani, we have a brayta which says it's no good. Yasir psul, even too much Levina is possible. Depends how much you add it. If you add a little bit, it's still okay. Was speaking that he was mafresh 2 kaimetz fills of Levina. That's double dose. That's too much. And that's why it's possible. But if it's just 1 plus, that's okay. Furthermore, on this halacha, suppose the owner earmarked 2 kaimetz, amounts of Levina. Fine. So far, it was just hufrash. It wasn't put into the mincha. And then one of the doses disappeared. Okay, so it happened, but it happened, in fact, before the kmitza, before the hakrava began. That saves the day. Lo yukbu. They haven't been bound together with the mincha because it's still before kmitza. But acha kmitza. Suppose the kmitza already occurred and then one of the levina doses disappeared. It's too late. Hukbu. They both became bound with the mincha. And now the mincha has a double dose of levina, and it's possible. On a similar token, let's move over to the lechem hapan, which has 2 spoonfuls of levina. Each one has a kaimetz full. Instead of doing 2, he set aside 4. The same story happened. 2 got lost. Va'avdu shnai mehen. It depends when it happened. Kaidim siluk bazichin. If it occurred before, he removed the spoons off the shulchan, which is sort of the initiation of the akrava. So it happened before that. Well, yukbu. The extra levina does no harm. It wasn't really connected yet to the carbon. But if it occurred la'achar siluk bazichin, if the mazichin had been removed, which is like an act of kmitza, which activates the akrava process, and now you have too much levina around, hukbu. They're all bound to the package, and now it disqualifies because it's too much. So it's pretty much a repetition of the earlier halacha. Why does Rambam Bacham have to repeat the same halacha twice? He set aside too much, the extra disappeared, depends when it disappeared, before the akrava, after the akrava. Why repeat the same or the similar halacha regarding a mincha and regarding lechem hapanim as well? Hainuach, isn't it both the same point? Ma'od tema, perhaps I would think you could differentiate. Perhaps by the lechem hapanim it's worse. Why? Given the butter, you see, in contrast to a regular mincha where the levina doesn't stand alone, it's in the container, it's sort of sitting together with, right? So again, in contrast to regular mincha where the dough is one glob and the kmitza has to be separated, right? Talking about the kmitza of the dough first. So the kmitza has to be detached, separated. So there I understand before that happened, it's still premature, it's early in the process, and again, if the extra levina disappeared, you save the day. But by lechem hapanim, with the kmitza, in this case the levina, and the spoons are inherently separate. All the time, perhaps I can think, even the butter, it's like a butter on Shabbos, you separate. Kaimas the levina within the spoons are inherently separate. They're standalone, they're in the spoons. So I would think, once it's time to pull them away. It's midday on Shabbos, Kimanda Prikadami. Let's treat it as though it happened already. And therefore, At this point, at this stage, if you have too much levina in the area, all that levina now becomes bound and connected to this package, and the lechem apanim is puzzle. Even before you actually did that pull out, you separated the spoons. You pulled them off the table. So perhaps by lechem apanim, it's worse. It's more severe. Again, he designated too much levina. And we say that if the levina disappeared before he pulled away the bazichim, which is the initiation of the Torah, which is the activation of the akrava process, you're safe. Perhaps not. Perhaps as soon as the time for doing so has come, you treat it as though it's already happening, because it's already here, it's separate, ready to go. Kamashmalan says the Gemara, no. The point is no. As long as the extra levina disappeared before you actually pulled out and removed these spoons, which is the physical step taken to activate the akrava process, until that happens, you can still modify things, and as long as you got rid of the actual levina, you're safe. Because ultimately, during the actual akrava, you only had 2 spoons of levina, so you saved the mincha. Okay, so quick chazar. We had the Mishnah. Too much oil, too little oil is puzzle. The chiddush was even if the oil was meant for this mincha, we have too little levina is puzzle. Well, we have 3 shitas. According to Rameh, any missing levina. According to Rabbi Yehuda, 2 granules is enough. Rabbi Shimon says even 1 granule is enough. But according to many, that leniency only applies to levina that accompanies a mincha, because it's based on that pasuk. Ve'ez kol levina asher ala mincha. And we discussed a double dose of levina being problematic, but again, only if it was present during the act of kmitza, and likewise by the lechem apanim during the act of siluk bazichim, which corresponds to the act of kmitza by mincha. All the best to you and much hatzlacha.